In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make what I've called the balloon pouch, because to me it just looks a little bit like a balloon. It's basically a drawstring bag with two ties at the top and a rounded bottom. So this is going to make a perfect gift bag for any occasion, thinking coming up to Christmas time, maybe birthdays, but it's a great little bag that you can use for storage as well. So maybe put your bathroom bits and bobs in there and hang it up on the back of the door. And it's very simple to make. So here's what we need and here's how we do it. So I have my outer fabric. This is my lining fabric. I'm using a woven interfacing this time. This is a G700, just to give the bag a little bit of firmness. Then I've got my ribbon and a plate. So my plate measures 10.5 inches across. You could make that any size you like, bigger or smaller. So let's draw our bag shape first of all. So I'll lay this on the plain fabric because it's going to be easier to see. And I'm just going to draw around the bottom half of it, and that's going to form the shape of the bottom of the bag. And then take a ruler and, keeping this nice and square, I'm just going to go up the sides like so, and the same on this side. And I'm going to make this, let me just measure how far from the bottom. I'm 13 inches from the bottom of the circle. So you can see the mark there. So again, circle is around here and carry that line up to the side until this measurement measures 13 inches. Then I'm going to cut out the shape and use this as a template to cut out the outer pieces. So let's lay this over the top. Make sure if you've got a directional fabric that your fabric is in the right direction. And I'm just going to put a few pins in there and then cut out this complete shape again. Now this time I'm just going to take 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimeters off the top of this one. And that means that when the lining goes in, it's just going to fold over the top slightly, so it'll look like it has that border around the top. And then the outer pieces I'm going to fuse onto the stabilizer. So again, this is a Vlieselene stabilizer, and it's not too heavy, it's not too thick, because the thing with having a very thick stabilizer, so maybe something like your fusible fleeces, your H640s and H630s, on something that gathers, like has a drawstring around the top, it may be a little bit too bulky to gather up properly. So a finer interfacing like this gives you a little bit more stability, so the bag will keep its shape, but it'll gather up quite nicely as well. So these will go onto both of the outer pieces. So I'm just ironing up to the edges, then I'll cut out the shape so I can iron right up to the edges without getting glue on my iron. And take one of the outer pieces and one of the lining pieces, and we're going to sew straight across the top, and do that with both pieces. So as you can see, it's coming together really quickly actually, and I think it's going to be one of those bags that once you've made one, you're going to be making lots of them, because they make great gift bags, but they make great storage bags as well. So let's pop a couple of pins in here. Whoops. And we'll do the same, so just sew straight across the top. And then we'll open this out, put the two pieces together. Just going to iron the seam with the seam allowance facing towards the lining. And there we go, so right sides together. I'm just going to pop a pin into the seam here because I want to make sure that those match. And let's put one in the bottom as well, and the bottom of this one. And then we're going to sew all the way around. So all the way around the outer bag, and then all the way around the lining, but leave a turning gap of about 4 inches or 10 centimetres in one side so that you can turn it the right side out. Then I'm going to trim the seam of the outer bag back a little bit. If you've got pinking shears, that would be ideal, and you could snip little V shapes into the seam if you like, but this is just to keep the bulk of the seam allowance down so that the seam sits flatter when you turn it the right side out. No need to do this on the lining side because the lining in effect will always be inside out. Then we'll turn this through. Like so. Push that out. And then sew the opening closed at the side. Now I'm just going to do it by machine. If you were selling this, then I would maybe do it by hand and use a ladder stitch, but just for time's sake, I'm just going to fold the edges over and then sew straight across the top of here to close it. So if you're using a ladder stitch, you won't see the stitches. Obviously it's a little bit more time consuming to do that, but it will give you a neat and very professional finish, particularly if it's something that you're going to sell, even though it's on the inside. Now then, I'm going to mark where I want the channel to go for the ribbon, but I'm going to do it on the lining side of my bag because it's plain and I can see it better than I can on the outside. So I'm going to, let's push this through and give it a press. So this is the border that's been left around the top, remember, because I cut the outer bag slightly smaller, so it's just rolled over the top and it looks like I've added a piece of bias binding there. Let's give that a press. I'll just do that all the way around while I'm here actually. And I am going to top stitch around here before I mark where the channel is going to go. So free arm on your machine if you have one, and let's sew all the way around. I'm just going to sew just underneath the seam, and I'm using a white thread. If you're not too confident on top stitching, then use the same colour thread as your fabric, so it blends in. So this is going to hold the layers of fabric together. I think it looks quite nice as well. I like a bit of top stitching. I think it gives a professional finish pattern work. And again, only because my fabric's easier to see the markings on the plain side, I'm going to turn it inside out and mark from this side. So let's take my ruler and erasable ink pen, and I'm going to draw 1/4 of an inch from my stitch line, so this is 3/4 of an inch from the top of my bag. Now, depending on the thickness of your ribbon, I'm just using 1/4 of an inch thick ribbon. I want the channel to be twice the size. So you've got 2 sets of ribbon that are going through here, and I want them to go through smoothly. So if my ribbon's 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to make my channel 1/2 inch wide. If you're using a wider ribbon, so if you're using a 1 inch ribbon, then I would make your channel twice the size. So if you're using 1/2 inch ribbon, just use a 1 inch channel. So first one, 3/4 of an inch from the top, and second one, 1/2 an inch down. And I'm going to sew along both of these all the way around. When you get to the seam, I'm just going to do a little back stitch over the seam, just to strengthen it a little bit, because I'm going to be unpicking that seam in a second. And hop across to the second line and do the same again. And then we'll turn this the right side out. Take a quick unpick, and I'm just going to unpick the stitches in between the channel, just from the top, so not from the back side, just from the top. So really carefully, there we go. Just unpick a few, and the same on the opposite side, again just in between the channel and just on the outer fabric. So try not to take a quick unpick all the way through to the lining. Seems the postman's here. Okay, and then you can go back on there now. My ribbon needs to be slightly longer than the bag all the way around. So I've got enough room for that to go around, and then a nice little tie at the side as well. And we'll need 2 pieces. So again, I'll leave all of the measurements for everything that I'm using in the description box below. But that's how to measure your ribbon, basically, if you're going to make a larger or a smaller one. Then let's take a safety pin. I like to fold the end of the ribbon over in half, so there's less chance of it fraying against the pin, and then push it through the channel and feed it all around. So just pull that through and tie the ends of the ribbon in a knot so they're not going to come undone. Trim those so that they're even. Whoops. So that ribbon's gone this way. This ribbon is going to go that way, so it goes in the opposite direction, through the same channel, in the same way, but in the opposite direction. So again, I just like to fold it in half so that the ribbon doesn't tear against the pin, and around we go. So again, let's pull that so it's even, another knot on these two ends. Trim those down so they're the same. And there's my pouch finished. So a really simple make, again, any size that you want to. Embellish them with maybe initials or a plique if you wanted to as well. But a really quick and simple make that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. I'll see you next time.